Stranger danger, people. I feel like that term has never been more accurate. I feel like it's important if we're parents out there to teach the kids about stranger danger. I feel like even as adults, it's important for us to take heed to that term right there, man. It's very important that we take heed to that. And I feel like this is something that I should have taken heed to because, listen, man, very rarely will y'all hear me say, I got better shit to do with my time than talk about this movie. I feel like this is time off my life I can't get back. Not the review, because I want y'all to know how I feel about this. And I ain't gonna take up too much time talking about this shit. But I feel like the movie itself, that's time off my life I ain't gonna get back, man. It is. And I got some choice words for this, but I'm gonna keep it brief. I haven't taken any notes. I just got one tab pulled up. Well, I got a couple tabs pulled up, but I got a tab on the laptop pulled up for this movie in particular, so that I don't get the director, his credentials, the cast wrong, the budget, whatever the fuck the case may be. I want to make sure that we're clear on several things here. But before we do that, let me calm down. I'm a little hyped up off the caffeine, people, and I definitely need more because I want to do some commentary today. I'm getting back to the regularly scheduled madness, as I said on Instagram and Facebook, next week. Yes, people, I'm getting back to it. Legs are definitely a hell of a lot better. So we're definitely getting back to the content, man. Summer's about to be here in like a couple weeks or so, officially. So it's no excuse, man. I'm not going to let the injury stop me from getting this content out to y'all. But we got to focus on the task at hand, people. But before we get into the Strangers chapter 1, yes, people, that is a chapter. It's the first of a trilogy that we're getting. But before we get there, let's think about something. Let's think about all the remakes we've gotten. Whether they're amazing, whether they're middle of the road, whether they're absolutely terrible and just downright unnecessary. I feel like with the greats, we can look at remakes like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That's one of the best, probably top 5 for me. You can look at Night of the Living Dead. That's another amazing example of a remake. The Thing, The Fly, The Blob, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which jump-started the whole 2000 slasher remake craze. You could also look at what is another good horror remake out there. I just had it on the tip of my motherfucking tongue, and I can't remember it. But y'all get the gist of it, man. Then you look at the middle of the road ones where it's like, okay, it's cool, but we could have did a lot more. I feel like The Stepfather, the main character is Notary O'Quinn. I think that was the actor's name in the first one, but it's not terrible, but it's just very dry. I feel like there are a lot of dry horror remakes out there. Hills Have Eyes was the other amazing example of a remake I was about to say. But you have middle of the road. I don't know how many people consider Psycho to be a middle of the road remake. I know majority of people hate it. I think on the eyes, Gus Van Sant made a fantastic looking movie. The problem with the Psycho remake was that the movie was damn near 98% shot for shot of the original. But it does have almost the same aesthetic as Martin Scorsese's Cape Fear remake. I don't know how many people I just lost on that comparison, but go back and watch the Psycho remake. I guarantee you it's not a waste of time like this one is. But then you look at the remakes that are just straight up bad. You look at the horror remakes like Black Christmas 2019. My Bloody Valentine, I think, is a terrible remake for, in my personal opinion. You've got some bad shit out there. Nightmare on Elm Street, terrible remake, man. Reboot, remake, whatever the case may be. So safe to say, man, we've had a bunch of, good, bad, and ugly out there. Where does this fall? The Strangers chapter 1. Actually, I'm gonna get to the Strangers chapter 1. I feel like the Strangers chapter 1 is that one motherfucker that you just can't wait to just beat the brakes off of. It's like, I'm gonna get to you in a second. I'm gonna make this special. But give me 1 second, people. I promise you I'm gonna get to this. One of the things I want to talk about before getting into this, we gotta talk about the first movie, The Strangers. I think it was directed by a guy named Brian Bertino, written and directed if I'm not mistaken, but don't quote me on that. And I think it came out in 2009, 2010 at the latest. And I remember seeing that movie for the first time, scared the shit out of me. It became a modern classic for me. Not only a modern classic, but it became top 10. It is one of the scariest movies of all time for me, man. It just takes the home invasion spin and just puts so much tension, so much cat and mouse on it, man. It's so fucking creepy. For a modern film to be that creepy for me, I think that it definitely gives us our bang for our buck. And I love, Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman in that movie, man. Now they're not one note, but they are going through some shit, and then they have to get themselves out of some shit. It makes for a pretty good siege, cat and mouse, home invasion type of movie. If y'all hear the Mr. Salty coming down the block, please, my apologies, people, but definitely threw me off track. Then we get to the sequel. A lot of people think that The Strangers didn't need a sequel, but I'm sorry, man. I think Johannes Roberts, who also directed Welcome to Raccoon City, the last Resident Evil reboot we got, I think he did a decent enough job making a sequel that was way better than it had any business being. Is it as scary and cat and mouse as the first one? Absolutely not. Is it as atmospheric and just creepy as the first one? No. But I think that the cat and mouse shit in the sequel does work. Now the characters probably make dumber decisions than they do in the first one, but you can't have a horror movie without characters doing dumb shit. It just depends on how dumb they are. That being said here, now I don't know why we didn't get The Strangers Part 3. They definitely left it open ended, and they definitely alluded to the fact that the strangers might be supernatural, man. They were surviving a lot of shit in that movie, especially the man, Scarecrow, I think they call him, or the man in the bag mask, baghead, whatever the hell they call him. He was charred up at the end of the fucking movie, man. Like, he survived. I think he was driving the truck on fire at some point at the end of the sequel, and I was like, oh wow, we got some setup here. So if we're going supernatural with these slashers, man, let's do it. I'm all for it. But then news broke a while back that Renny Harlin was or they were rebooting The Strangers, the first part of a new trilogy, and I'm like, well, what the fuck for? The first one doesn't need a reboot. It didn't even need a sequel, but because the sequel was better than it had any business being, let's just continue on and cap the trilogy off. And if it's that good, let's do a fourth one. Let's franchise this shit and keep it going consistently. But they said that it was a new trilogy coming out, and I'm like, well, that's stupid. Who's directing it? Renny Harlin's directing it, as the headline said, man. Now, Renny Harlin, for anybody that doesn't know Renny Harlin, a nightmare. He did a movie called Prison. I think that was his. Was it Prison, or was it I think John Carl Beekler did Prison. I don't know. Let me look this guy up, man. Now I know I want to look up his humble beginnings, but I know for me, I know. But for the uninitiated, Renny Harlin directed Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. He directed Deep Blue Sea, Cliffhanger, Mindhunters, which is an underrated psychological thriller. It's got L. Cool J and Johnny Lee Miller and Christian Slater. It's a really, really solid, whodunit type of thing. Now, let me look really quickly to see what else Renny Harlin has done earlier in his career. Was it Prison, or was that John Carl Beekler? Oh, I'm sorry. He also directed The Exorcist: The Beginning. Terrible, terrible fucking movie. One of the worst in the series. Oh, he did do Prison in 1987. That was pre Nightmare on Elm Street 4. He also directed Die Hard 2. Die Hard 2 is cool. It's not better than the first one, and it's not even close to being as good as Part 3, but it's definitely not the worst. I think the fifth Die Hard is the worst. So Renny Harlin definitely got a good Die Hard movie under his belt. He also directed The Long Kiss Goodnight. So the guy has got, good movies under his belt for sure. But my red flags went up immediately because I'm like, Renny Harlin's directing The Strangers. He's done horror movies and he's done horror action, but as far as like a home invasion, cat and mouse, creepy, atmospheric type of film, I don't think Renny Harlin's the guy for the job, man. I said this very early on, and I stood 10 toes down on this shit, man. And this movie proves that I was right. Renny Harlin was not the guy for this job, man. It's like when I said, what I say about Paul W.S. Anderson directing Alien vs. Predator. I mean, the guy can deliver a fun, mindless popcorn film, but he's not the guy to direct a fucking crossover film, a versus movie of horror and sci-fi elements, man. He's just not the guy. And Renny Harlin just wasn't the guy for this, man. And I'm like, the audacity of y'all to shoot all three of these back to back. The first one just better be a banger. And I had all the red flags, man. I did a trailer reaction. I pulled out some solid things in the trailer, but the solid things were very minor. The trailer was just hitting beat for beat. The only thing they did was amp up they just amplified the strangers. They're running, they're moving a lot swifter and faster. It's not like the first movie where they were basically like on some Michael Myers, Phantom Creeper type of business. Nah, man, they on your ass in this one, and that's cool and everything, but that doesn't necessarily always make the movie scarier. So I said, let me give this a chance, man. I watched this Friday night, and I tried, man. I did. The movie starts with a red flag for me. Any movie that starts with somebody running from something in the woods, this motherfucker with a suit and tie on, he's like a politician or something that we find out later on. His missing poster is on the diner bulletin board or whatever. But the movie starts with this guy running in the woods and looking behind him. Cliche 80s shit that they used to do. Some movies pull it off, but it depends on what you follow up with after that. And it just follows up with, does he trip and fall? I really don't remember. But either way, he ends up in front of the strangers, man. And they're surrounding him. And the man, the scarecrow guy slams the axe down. And then the movie starts. And I'm like, okay, that's a weak fucking opening, man. And then they do the whole 1 out of 10 violent crimes in America happen while you're watching this movie. And it's like, all right, we've done this. We've done it, man. We know this is a fucking reboot. Whatever you want to call it, man. I even went as far as I was like, is this a reboot or is this a prequel, a sequel, a loose something? But no, it's a fucking reboot. They pull shit, sequences and lines straight out of the first movie and don't do the shit any justice at all. And listen, when we get introduced to these characters, man, these characters, Maya and Jeff, played by Madeleine Petsch and Ryan Bound? I'm gonna just say Bound. Shout out to Kanye West for Bound 2. That is actually a pretty solid song and sample. But when you get introduced to these characters, they are the complete opposite of Scott Speedman and Liv Tyler. Now, let's backtrack for a little bit. Scott Speedman and Liv Tyler, you could tell shit is not right with them in the beginning of the movie. And then they go to that dinner or whatever it is and they're laughing. And then you could tell they have that little moment at the table where he puts his hand on her face and she kind of like, she caves into it and folds. And then he's carrying her out at the end of the night. And it's like, wow, things are going to be all right. They're going to patch shit up and he's going to get some ass. And they're going to live happily ever after. But then he proposes to her. They don't really show what happens, but he proposes to her and she turns him down. So this motherfucker's eating ice cream and shit. Like he's all depressed about to watch Young and the Restless or whatever. And then they make up, they're about to get some ass, and then the strangers come. Now, they are the complete opposite here because they are just in marital bliss all without being married. They're in the 5-year anniversary honeymoon phase and, they're cracking lame jokes and just goo goo gaga over each other with the heart eyes and, just Cupid flying around both their heads. This is my thing. That's all good and well. But the fact that you make them just so happy and just so clingy towards one another and the dialogue is just so upbeat and happy for these characters, that doesn't make me give a fuck about them anymore. Like, I don't care about them being happy. I respected more that Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman in that first movie. They were going through some fucked up shit on top of more fucked up shit after she denied his proposal. Then it's like, okay, I know we're pissed at each other for whatever reasons, but damn, like these motherfuckers are trying to break into our crib and kill us. So we have to deal with that on top of the problems we have to solve when this is all over, if we survive. The fact that you make these two just cartoon character happy I don't care. I don't give a fuck, man. The more that the movie went on, the more I didn't give a fuck whether they died or not. I'm rooting for the strangers at this point. And then one of the things that made the first movie creepy, it was just natural vibes in that movie, man. It was. But the fact that you have these two happy-go-lucky motherfucking characters, pull up at this town to get something to eat, they go in the diner and everybody stops what they're doing to look at him. You got Richard Brake playing one of the officers who's underused like shit in this movie. They don't do anything with Richard Brake except put him on screen as the sheriff or the cop, deputy, whatever the hell he is, and they put him on screen just so people can say, oh, it's that guy from those movies. It's that guy from Barbarian or Doom or Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 or whatever the case may be, or 31. Whatever the fuck you know him from, a lot of people don't even know Richard Brake's name. I don't even know if it's Brake or Brake. I obviously don't know the motherfucker's name either. But he's just on screen to look creepy and look menacing and maybe let people think, oh, he might be in on it. But I promise y'all, the moment they walk in there, they give themselves away and everybody just looks at them like they know they're not from there. Everybody turns around and looks at him. And I think I said this in the trailer, man. They go in there and you would think that they came in that motherfucker and said, Large Marge sent me, and dishes just go clattering all over the place. Or they might as well have went in there and said, how far is it to Camp Crystal Lake? And everybody just turns around like with this look of shock. So it's just awkward as fuck as soon as they walk in. Then when they go outside, they find out that, something's wrong with their car and then they have to crash at this Airbnb that's like a couple miles away from the diner. But and then there's the two Amish kids or the Latter Day Saints kids that they had in the first movie. It's not the same kids, but they are the two Latter Day Saints motherfuckers nonetheless. And they're children of the corn mode in this. The thing about the kids in the first movie, they were just kids passing by to hand out the pamphlets of the good word of Jehovah or whatever they were doing, and they just stumbled upon two dead bodies and got the shit scared out of them, and then they were on that 911 call in the beginning. These kids are straight out of Gatlin, Nebraska. These two Amish kids or whatever they are in the movie, man. And this is the problem that I have with Renny Harlin. The first movie, and I'm gonna keep making comparisons because they had the audacity to reboot it. The problem with this movie is this movie wants to be scary so fucking bad that it's wearing it on his sleeve. The first movie didn't have to try so hard, man, but this one, you got the people turning around in the diner as soon as they come in. You got the kids staring deadpan at the two people who are clearly not from that town. You are trying too hard to be a fucking a scary movie, and it's just not working. And then you got the guy that pops up, car trouble. The last movie to do that guy, you're having car trouble, or the gas station guy, quote unquote. The last movie to do that was Cabin in the Woods, and it turned a whole genre on its ear, so it works. But this shit is just, they are just checking all the boxes of slasher movie cliches, man, of home invasion cliches, and it's just not working. They get to this Airbnb now. The Airbnb is probably one of the best characters in the whole movie, man. It's a really nice looking cabin. It's a really beautiful setup. They've got a beautiful piano in there that lends itself to one of the best sequences in the whole movie. And I'll get to that in a second. Hopefully I don't forget. But they're still doing the same shit, man. They're in there smoking bud and having their, marital bliss conversations, and then they about to fuck. They're about to get some ass, and, he's got her up on the kitchen sink. They're about to undress each other. Then you hear the knocks. I think the knocks are a lot better than the first knocks were they're louder, they're more aggressive, so it's like, oh shit, they're not playing around this time. But it's the same thing, man. The knocks happen. They go to the front door, and it's like, is Tamara home? And it's like, no, Tamara don't fucking live here. And then the chick leaves. Same shit. Recycle, rinse, repeat. However you say it, man, that's what they're doing here. You even have it down to the guy Jeff doing the Scott Speedman shit where he leaves his girlfriend at the cabin for like a whole entire act of the film. And he goes into town and he's like, yeah, can I get a cheeseburger with no burger? It's like, motherfucker, why didn't you just get that girl a grilled cheese sandwich and call it a day? And then there's the moment where you think something's going to happen because the people that work at the diner are off work having beers, and they're like, hey, have a beer with us. It's that guy from town who thinks he's better than all of us. It's like, no, you motherfuckers are just weird. It's awkward to even be around y'all, and I got to get back home to my woman. So while he's out, the strangers try to break in. One of them is actually inside the house. But going back to the piano, one of the best sequences in the whole movie is a scene where Maya just randomly sits at a piano and she starts messing with the keys, but she starts playing Moonlight Sonata. Anytime you put Moonlight Sonata, I don't even care if it's in a bad movie, it is such a beautiful piece that I will accept it in even the worst horror movie, or not even a horror movie, man. It doesn't matter. Even the worst movie, if you play Moonlight Sonata, you are already getting cool points for that sequence by itself. But there's a moment where you see the guy, the scarecrow stranger guy. He's behind her, and you see his reflection in the mirror that's above her, and she doesn't know. Obviously, she doesn't know, and that's one thing. I'm not gonna break down scene for scene what the fuck happens in this movie, man, because you could just watch the first one for all of that, because they repeat so many beats from the first one. They just try to, like I said, they try to amplify everything up. They give you a little bit more adrenaline this time around. But one thing I will give Renny Harlin to his credit, man, I will never take this away from Renny Harlin as a director. I'll never take this away from Renny Harlin or away from this movie as a shitty reboot. The Strangers, the three of them, whether together or separately, are filmed fucking amazingly, man. There are so many shots where it's like like the earlier Halloween movies where you almost don't see them in the shot, or if you see them, the characters don't see them, man. And the framework that they've got, whether they're standing still or whether it's a sequence that's happening when they're creeping around, it's amazing. These are how creepy slashers are to be filmed and framed in a movie like this, man. There's a moment where Maya and Jeff go into another room. They go into another room, and I think they slam the door shut and lock it, and one of them hits the lighter, and it's either the pinup girl or Dollface is right behind them, and you think they're going to turn around and do like the classic jump scare moment where they get jump scared themselves, not us as the audience because we see them already, but the pinup girl, Dollface, whoever, whichever one it is, she just stares at both of them and just turns around and walks away undetected, and they don't see her. In that moment, I was like, oh shit. Like, I'm thinking it was going to be what I thought it was, but she just walked away. They are still playing cat and mouse, but it's not done nearly as well as the first one or even the second one, man. It's just not, things just don't work, man. And then I didn't mention how these characters can't tell the difference between ketchup and blood. And that bothers me, man. And they ruined it in the trailer. I wish they didn't show this in the trailer, but there's a moment where the guy actually does get back with the food and they're eating at the table. And she's like, "You're the messiest eater I've ever seen in my life." And he's just smearing ketchup on his face, just fucking with her. And the ketchup is dripping onto the table or onto his container where his burger's in. And then blood starts to drip. And then they just look down at the blood dripping. This is what I hate in movies. When blood is dripping from the ceiling, the characters stare down at it like, is that what I think it is? Because I'm not sure, man. I'm not sure of all the facts. I'm not, I almost said a bloodologist. But who would care at this point, man? It's like, I'm no expert in blood, but that looks a lot like what I think it is. And they're just staring at the table while the blood's dripping, and they slowly look up, and it's a fucking rooster or whatever the hell it is that they tied up and killed. And then I think at that point, that's when the strangers start to break in. And yeah, like I said, the adrenaline's up, man. They bash through windows and bust through doors and axe down doors a little more aggressively than the original film. But that doesn't always make it better, man. The strangers themselves, Mattis Lajkak. I don't know if I said his name right. He plays Scarecrow. Olivia Kreutzova plays Dollface, and Letizia Fabry plays Pinup Girl. Now, they're not terrible. I won't go as far as to say they're terrible. They're not even really bad, to be honest. They try to add their own little new things, their own nuances to these characters separately and together. But I don't think they are anywhere near as effective, man. Like I said, they are framed and filmed really well throughout a lot of sequences and shots in this movie, man. But I think overall that the newfound aggression that they give some of them and the craziness they try to put on display for them, it just doesn't work, man. Because while I do want to root for the strangers at this point, I'm just way more attached to how creepy they were in the first movie, man. This isn't doing anything to improve on anything. It's not, man. The stalk sequences aren't good. There is one sequence that I will give credit to also, where Maya and Jeff escape temporarily, and they're crawling underneath the house. And Maya, at some point, while she's crawling on her hands, her hand goes straight through a fucking nail. And she tries to scream, and then Jeff's just like, he's like, no, shut the fuck up, don't scream. And then he has to pull the nail out, and she kind of squeals a little bit. Listen, I told my woman, I'm like, listen, if we're crawling underneath the house from these motherfuckers, and my hand like, if a nail goes through my hand, we're just gonna get caught. We're just gonna get caught. And she's like, for real, you just gonna risk our lives like that? I'm like, listen to me now. There's no way. Marv from Home Alone, what's his name? Marv, Daniel Stern. I know he stepped on that nail and kind of had a delayed reaction, but the way he screamed when he was on his way down the steps when he fell, that's how I would have screamed had that nail went through my hand. I'm sorry, we just gonna get caught, and we just gonna have to run for our lives. And speaking of running for their lives, when the strangers start to bust through, when the man starts to bust axe through the door on some "Here's Johnny" type shit, the Dollface or Pinup Girl is actually walking down the steps slowly but surely. They are either in the crib or making their way in there. But, Maya and Jeff just close the bedroom door, lock it, and they just back into a corner. They cower into a corner, or not even in a corner, against the wall. The window is right behind them. I don't know if I'm even going to waste time trying to open it. I'm just going to catapult myself through the fucking window, and then I'm going to grab my girl, and we going to run. And even she was telling me, she's like, yeah, you think that in the middle of the woods we can just run? I said, we're going to run until we find the road. You think if we're not going to burn the house down and give the strangers a run for their fucking money, and just get on some kamikaze suicidal type of shit like that driver is outside my window, then we are going to make a run for it. I don't even care if we just run till our lungs burst, but the last thing we're about to do is sit in an Airbnb where with three of these motherfuckers just closing in on us, and we're going to sit and wait to die? Hell no. But they just sit there and they just wait to, all right, I think the coast is clear. I think it's quiet. Let's go. Like, these characters are dumb today. Stupid fucking characters, man. That's why the more the movie progressed, the more I did not give a fuck whether they were going to live or die or not, man. Nothing worked for me in this movie except the small things I'm giving it credit for, man. There's even the moment where they get a chance to get away like they did in the first one. Now, even in the first one, as much as I love that movie, they did some dumb shit when they got in that truck. You know, when they get in that truck, they want to look and be like, oh my God, who's that? We can't run her over. And then they get rammed into by the truck and all this other shit. But the same thing happens in this movie. You know, they get a chance to get away. You know, they reverse and they spin around and they hesitate. You know, the moment that you took the hesitate, that's the difference between life and death. And lo and behold, the man is in the truck and he rams into him. And then the guy gets stuck. And Maya's like, I am not leaving you, baby. We're in this together. I'm not really giving verbatim what she says, but she definitely lets him know she's not leaving him. And he's like, babe, you gotta go. I love you. You have to go and save yourself. Listen. Now, I'm not saying she should have left him, but it looked like his leg was crushed. I thought his leg was crushed, but he eventually gets out. But this is what, you know, causes the conflict with the characters, because now they're separated in the woods at this point. But he's got a shotgun, fully loaded shotgun, and he tells his girl, babe, I got a shotgun with a shit ton of ammo. We about to be good. First of all, they should have been in the tool shed when they escaped, making makeshift weapons. We'd have been putting some nails inside of a bat. We'd have been taping some, you know, we would have taped you know, like a harvest knife to a shovel or something. I don't care. You know, we'd sharpen stakes. It doesn't matter. We have to get it done. We need weaponry in this bitch to fend off three motherfuckers. Like, they already should have been running for their lives, but they just keep doing stupid shit. And they also have a moment where, you know, trigger happy Jeff, he turns the corner on the front porch and blasts somebody's head off with the shotgun. Not completely off, but he busts his shit up, you know, closed casket for sure. No facial reconstruction at all. But he shoots the wrong motherfucker. I think it's the guy that owns the Airbnb. They kill him. Trigger happy dude. You know, they did that in the first movie, except Scott Speedman shot his friend by mistake. Again, man, they're repeating beats from the movie that just don't work. It doesn't do those original scenes any fucking justice, man. This is a pointless... This remake is almost as pointless as the Cabin Fever remake. I don't know who's seen it, but I think it might be on Tubi somewhere. If not, then, you know, you can try your luck and look for it online somewhere. The guy named Travis Z and Eli Roth co-signed the fucking Cabin Fever remake. It is beat for beat the same shit to the point where they damn near used 90% of the same script, same lines and all. This is what that feels like. This is that. All right, y'all know what the fuck I'm trying to say, man. This is one of the most pointless reboots I have ever seen, and I wanted to be wrong about it, man. I wanted to be like, damn, Renny Harlin can actually pull off home invasion, psychological thriller, slasher, whatever you want to classify this as. He can pull it off, but he can't. I said that, man. We love Nightmare on Elm Street 4, but it's not real horror. You know, there are horrific moments in that movie, but it's not real horror. It's nothing really scary about it except the idea of some things. I don't know anybody that's watched Nightmare on Elm Street 4 and been like, yo, man, that movie scared the shit out of me. No, nobody's watched Deep Blue Sea and said that movie scared the shit out of me. The idea of being down there with those sharks, those super smart sharks, yeah, the idea of it, the concept is scary. You know, Mine Hunters. The concept is kind of scary, but I don't know anybody, and y'all point them out to me if I'm wrong, that has watched a Renny Harlin horror or sci-fi movie where people walked out of it saying they were scared or that they were scared throughout. I don't know. He's not the guy for a movie like this, man, and the more and more the movie goes on, the more it just shows itself. The moment the movie starts, it's just like, all right, Renny, you don't know what you're doing, do you? You know, it's like when you lie on, it's like that meme when you lie on your job application and still get the fucking job. You know, it's like Lionsgate or whoever the hell put this out. They were like, Renny, you can do horror, right? It's like, yeah, I did Nightmare on Elm Street. You know, I don't know what accent that was, but I know Renny Harlin's from like Finland or something like that. And I hate to talk bad about the guy, man, because he's got movies that are a staple in cinema, in my opinion, man. Yes, I said cinema. I think Nightmare on Elm Street, you know, regardless of how big and bad, not bad in a bad way, but how big and like badass Dream Warriors was, Dream Master is not a bad Nightmare on Elm Street movie, man. It just you know, Dream Warriors just cast a big shadow. So Renny Harlin's Dream Masters just had a lot of hype to live up to. And Deep Blue Sea, no matter how much stupid shit is in that movie, it is definitely fun, man. It's one of the most fun shark movies up there. I think it's top 5 shark movies, and Mindhunters is underrated gem. I know there's a lot of people that love Cliffhanger. I'm not really one of those people. I don't remember too much of it, but Renny Harlin's definitely got some great movies under his belt, man. This ain't one of them though, and the nerve of y'all to shoot 3 of these back to back. I don't know how well this is going to do, but please, man, if 3 of them, if 2 more have to come out, send that shit straight to streaming services, man. Put that shit on Peacock or Tubi or something, and just let it. I ain't gonna say let it die there. Give it a fighting chance. Who knows? Maybe part 2 will be better. I will give part 2 the benefit of the doubt. I'll be fair. I wasn't even going to review this, but I wanted to be fair for anybody that wanted my thoughts. I wanted to be fair for the movie itself. And to go back on these characters, I know I got sidetracked, people. To go back on these characters getting separated, they're trying to find each other in the woods. There's a cool shot of, it's like almost a manipulative kind of jump scare shot, which you think is going to be a classic jump scare, but they kind of hold on it a little bit, where Maya I think she goes to pick something up, and then she turns this way. She's like standing, her back facing a tree. She turns this way and she turns that way. You keep thinking that one of the strangers is going to pop up behind her in the frame, or just jump scare the shit out of her or something like that. But the way that they linger on it is kind of cool. It kind of leaves you in suspense. But they knock her ass out, I think, and they just drag her off. And then this is my part with this motherfucker Jeff. We find out Jeff is a killer. Not necessarily a killer, but he's killed before. Now, he has, which we saw in the trailer, Pinup Girl. Is it Pinup Girl or is it Dollface? I want to say Pinup Girl, the one that's got the Scully on. And in the trailer, she screams in his face when he's got her like dead bang with the shotgun right in her mitt. Why? This is bad writing, as if we didn't have shitty writing in this movie to begin with. This is where I'm like, okay, so not only are you bad at self-preservation, and not only are you a shitty boyfriend, and not only are you a shitty survivalist, but you're just terrible at life at this point. Now, he could have done one of 2 things. He could have grabbed Pinup Girl and held her at gunpoint. Yo, I got this. I got her. Let my girl go. And the strangers either would have abided by that, or they wouldn't have given a fuck about her. They would have just got a new Pinup Girl at that point. Or he could have just blew her head off. 1 down, 2 to go. Boom. Let's not waste any time. This motherfucker decides to give her a whole monologue at some point. He's like, yeah, I got you. Finally got you. Now give me one reason why I shouldn't blow your head off. Where's Maya? You know what they say, the first kill is the hardest? Well, you're going to be my second kill. He does what all the villains do in these movies before, they get their plans foiled and shit like that. It's just like, I got you caught here. I could kill you right now, but let me tell you my evil plan. Let me give you my origin story. Let me give you a rundown in my Rolodex of the things I've done last week and the things I'm going to do after the fact. Like, they just monologue and monologue and monologue. He just keeps fucking talking. And the girl is just like staring at him like, yeah, kill me. She don't give a fuck about dying. But, he wastes so much time giving her threats galore that the man in the mask comes and butts him with the axe, knocks his ass out, drags his ass, and now they're tied up. Now we're recreating the scene, the classic scene from the first one. Why are you doing this? Because you were home. And we already saw that bullshit in the trailer where it was like, she's like, why are you guys doing this? It's just like, because you're here. And the fact that y'all like recreated that line, you could have rewrote something that was just bone chilling, and it would have been like, okay, the movie was trash, but at least we got that. That was a cold ass line, but it was like, no, y'all rewrote that shit in the worst way possible. So he stabs Jeff, kicks his chair over, lets him bleed out, stabs Maya, kicks her chair and lets her bleed out, and the strangers feel like their job is done, at least in this Airbnb and in this portion of the town. But them sirens come a-calling, and then the strangers kind of look around. It's like, oh shit, one time is coming. We got to get the fuck up out of here. And I'm not gonna lie, I love the shot of them all getting in the truck together one by one and just driving off. And the moment they drive and part ways on the main road, the cops just miss them. They just missed them. I don't know. I'm a sucker for shit like that. Like, they could have got there just in the nick of time. But the strangers, they bang a right on the other road, and the cops get there right after they leave. And they have the audacity is at an all-time high here because they got the nerve to say to be continued at the end. But not only that, they got a fucking mid-credit sequence where Maya wakes up in the hospital and she sits up, and the scarecrow guy is just laying right next to her. I You motherfuckers y'all got some nerve, man. Y'all are very bold here. And like I said, man, I give Renny Harlin lots of credit. But this is one of those reboots. This is one of those movies in general where I want right now everybody that talked so much shit about The Strangers Pray at Night. I want y'all to begin y'all 3-part apology today and send it in to Johannes Roberts and everybody that was involved in the making of that movie, because that shit might as well be the first film in comparison to this. This is bad. This movie, I'll go as far as to give it, I don't remember what I gave it when I was like kind of going on a mini rant on Instagram and Facebook. I might have gave it like a 3 out of 10. And shout out to my boy Aaron Wilson because he didn't like it either. And we're very lenient with a lot of horror movies, man. Me and him are like two of the only people on the planet in this hemisphere that love Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 and Halloween 6. But he didn't like it either. He told me, like, yo, the 3 out of 10 is pretty fucking generous, man. And I'm like, yeah. And then I said that I could give it credit on certain things. I could give it credit on the way that the strangers are shot throughout the majority of the film, man. There's some really good shots of them. There's some really good sequences where they're creeping around. Like I said, the Moonlight Sonata sequence was great. I love hearing that piece on the piano. And I forgot what else I had gave credit to, but the sequence where they were underneath the house and that nail went through when that nail went through Maya's hand, I was like, God damn, man. But maybe the 3 out of 10 is generous, but I will give the credit where the credit's due, man. And maybe it wasn't Renny Harlin's fault. Maybe he saw The Strangers and maybe he just wasn't a fan of it. Maybe he was a director that was like, okay, this movie's cool. I can appreciate what they tried to establish here, but I'm going to do my spin on it and completely rip the first one off and not add anything new to it. I expected a little bit more creativity from Renny Harlin. Anybody that has worked on a Friday the 13th, anybody that's worked on a Nightmare on Elm Street film, I expect creativity from you motherfuckers after the fact, because Nightmare on Elm Street is no easy film to make, man. We've had Wes Craven, we've had Jack Shoulder, we've had Chuck Russell, we've had Renny Harlin, we've had Stephen Hopkins, we've had Rachel Talalay. Wes Craven came back for New Nightmare. You have Ronnie Yu, who had to do a crossover film with Freddy vs. Jason, and then you had Samuel Bayer, who was just the epitome of a non-creative motherfucker as far as a reboot and as far as Nightmare on Elm Street goes. But the things Renny Harlin pulled off to separate itself from the rest of the movies in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, I did expect more from him, man. Deep Blue Sea was so entertaining, man. Mindhunters is so entertaining that I like, he could have dialed down on the ridiculousness, kept the creativity, and just did a hell of a lot better with the, I know I said he wasn't the guy for it, but any director should be up to the challenge, man. Now, who would I have direct The Strangers, this reboot, Chapter 1? I don't know, but he was not the guy for the job, man. And I really hate it's something I always loved about Renny Harlin, but it's always been something about his movies I could never put my finger on that just wasn't there. I could never explain it, man. And I know that sucks because I love to go in depth and explain things to y'all and, and theorize and all of that, but Renny Harlin's just one of those directors that's always been that one thing that just wasn't there for me, even in the movies of his that I really love. And I just, for the life of me, I don't know what it is. But this shit wasn't nothing there. Out of that, the 3 out of 10 that I give this, still wasn't nothing there, man. It wasn't enough for me to recommend this. And I gotta shout out my boy Joe over at Struggle Nation, cause his review, him and M Dog's review, his brother, their review had me cracking up because I've never seen them just damn near depressed while trying to review a movie. And I was like, damn, bro, it was that bad. And he went to the theater to see this shit. I'm glad I did not. No diss to anybody that went to see it. I love a good theater experience, but I'm glad I didn't spend money on this shit. I'm glad, man. There's so many people. There's people that like this movie. And I said in my little mini rant on social media, I said, there's going to be people that like this movie. Good for y'all, and to each their own. This ain't that kind of party for me. 3 out of 10. I can't even say it was disappointing. I just wanted to, y'all know how I am, man. I want to be proven wrong about certain movies, man. I do this a lot. When I see the trailers, I'm like, yeah, even if I have no interest in seeing it and the trailer looks like shit, I'll still cave in. I'll cave in because I love to come back to y'all. Yo, I was wrong about this, and I love to list the good qualities about a movie that I thought was gonna be trash. This ain't one of those. This ain't one of those times. This ain't one of those times where I'm gonna go back and watch it a second time. I do plan on watching this again, but I guarantee y'all, this ain't gonna be like Talk to Me. Talk to Me. I only did a trailer reaction. Then when I watched it, I think me and my girl watched it, and we didn't really fuck with it at all. I didn't like it. It was one of last year's worst for me, horror movie wise. But I did a commentary, hoping that I would give it a second chance and come around to it. Didn't really work. I might have given it a little more credit the second time around, but this ain't one of them times. Y'all will not get an episode or a commentary where I'm like, you know what, I was a little wrong about the first one. No. Now I'll say this before we close this shit out. I plan on seeing what Renny Harlin does with the second one. I'm not about to cancel out Renny Harlin as a director. I think the guy still got a lot left in the tank as far as the genre goes. I just feel like this type of particular property is not for him. But I will give the second one a chance because, you know, I gave The Strangers Pray at Night a chance. And The Strangers is a movie that, like I said, didn't need a sequel. I think it's a modern masterpiece. Still scares the shit out of me to this day. I watching it with the lights out, with the speakers turned all the way up. Oh yeah, it's going to do the trick for sure. But the fact that I gave a chance to the sequel and I love it, maybe the same thing can happen with The Strangers Chapter 2. I'm not getting my hopes up, but I will be fair with it when the trailer drops. I'll be fair with it when the movie drops, all the above. But as for right now, this is a bad way to start your fucking your reboot trilogy off. Because you already got the movies made. I don't think Lionsgate is going to shelf these films. I don't believe that they would do that if this movie, if the reception is overall bad for this first one. I don't see them shelving it, but I do see them sending it to, I don't know, Netflix or, like I said, Peacock, Tubi, Amazon, whatever the fuck. And that's cool, man. Let people watch this kind of shit at home, man. Don't have people waste their goddamn money and spend $100 at the concession stand for this shit. Y'all know better. But wait, let me make sure this was Lionsgate that put this motherfucking movie out. Let me see here. Let me see. What do we got here? It's funny because I'm on IMDb. The tagline says they don't need a reason. You motherfuckers didn't need a reason to make this. To be honest. And okay, I can't see. I'm just going to keep saying Lionsgate for the sake of argument here. What I do want to say, or what I do want to see, is the budget they spent on this movie. Let's see. What's the budget? Where is the budget, people? I don't know. We're not going to spend too much time looking at that shit. I know so far, opening weekend, it grossed in the U.S. and Canada $11,825,058. That was May 19th when this shit came out, man. Opening weekend, that definitely, if that was opening weekend, that definitely makes me want to know what the budget was. Because if you motherfuckers if you're not making the budget back and then some, then yeah, they definitely might send y'all asses to Tubi or something like that. Let me stop talking shit about Tubi, because Tubi had a solid movie. I was seeing people talk about this on TikTok, and it's called Lowlifes. Please check that out. I actually got to finish it, but I think I've got like 30 minutes or so left for the movie, and it pulls the rug right from up underneath you. So I don't really go with the movies that people recommend on TikTok too often, but I'm glad that I did with that one. But that shit is a hell of a lot better than this, and I still got to finish it. The ending could be bad, but it had a great 2X, and I could say that about that movie. I can't say that shit about this one. This was one of the most pointless, shitty reboots I've ever seen. It's definitely going in that category. This makes My Bloody Valentine morbidly entertaining. I'm sorry, man, and I hate that fucking reboot or remake, whatever it is. I'm looking forward to the next one though. But yeah, man, this is a 3 out of 10 for me, man. Like I said, some good framework. The movie doesn't look bad. Cinematography is pretty decent here. But I much rather prefer the first one. Sequel's way better than this. But I'll be fair with the other one. And also about the performances. The performances aren't anything to really brag about, and no diss to anybody that was, that any of the actors or actresses in this movie. I just didn't give a shit about these characters at all. They incorporated way more characters than they needed to, and I think they needed to separated from the first movie where we really want this small town feel to kick into high gear almost right away. And I think that was a big mistake, because just because you add more characters, that doesn't make me give a fuck about these characters or the characters you introduce any more or less. I could give a shit, man, about any of them. Like I said, Richard Brack, he he's just there. He's just there to be that recognizable actor, man. And I don't know if they're going to bring him back. I feel like they should bring him back, give him a bigger role. But how much do we expand in the sequel? The chick wakes up in the hospital. Are we going to go, Halloween 2? Is she going to get stalked at the hospital? I have no idea what they're going to do with the sequel. Just do better. If y'all going to do anything with the fucking sequel, do better. I sound like Simon Cowell when he's talking to those failed fucking American Idol auditions. He's like, get better. That's the only advice he gave those motherfuckers, and that's the only advice I can give y'all for this movie right here, man. If I will shout out some of the actors and actresses in here, I will shout out the strangers themselves, man. It's very hard to play a slasher, whatever type of esque character without talking. Kane Hodder said that, and he loosely said something along the lines of that in one of the interviews where he was talking about playing Jason Voorhees. But all the Jason Voorhees characters have done it. All the actors, I meant to say, all the Michael Myers actors have done it, and whatever other, the Scream movies, the stunt guys have done it. But for them to add their own little flair to these characters and make it their own, I respect that. You didn't want to beat for beat do what the strangers or the actors and actresses did in the first movie, or even the second movie for that matter. So they did their own thing. I can definitely respect that on their behalf. And it's hard to do that with no lines of dialogue. So they did a decent job. They did exactly what they were hired to do. And they have their moments, like I said, man. But it's just, fuel injection doesn't always do the trick, man. It doesn't always make the movie better. And it's a shame that I couldn't be, more enthusiastic in this review, and a lot more things to big up here for y'all and surprise everybody and say, yeah, man, that was pretty good, because it wasn't. And I'm not about to lie to y'all. I've already taken up too much of y'all motherfucking time doing this review. I do this every time, man, where I'm like, yeah, I ain't gonna waste too much time talking about this. Here we are, 46 minutes in. But people, y'all already know where to go, man. And if y'all don't, y'all can follow the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, Podcast Breaker, Radio Public, Podbean, and Podcast Addict. Shout out Spotify for podcasters. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, Romero Tudor. Shout out to the Facebook movie group, The Cinemaniacs. And last but certainly not least, shout out to the Tudor reviewers, the listeners, the lovers, the supporters out there. Definitely will be dropping this review later on today. It is Sunday, by the way. It is the Lord's Day, and I've spent this whole episode talking blasphemy about this fucking movie, man. But it's cool. God will forgive me for it. He knows my heart. He knows my horror movie heart, and he knows that I had pure intentions going into this shit right here, man. But the good news is, aside from this being, a movie that I could burn at the stake, we are definitely getting back to our regularly scheduled madness next week, people. It'll be, Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the commentary, Tuesday, Thursday for the trailer reactions, and maybe some little treats in between. Saturday and Sunday's supposed to be the rest day. As the missus said, I was like, I don't know what the rest day is supposed to be. And definitely feeling a hell of a lot better. And thank you to anybody that's still checking in and, sending their well wishes and saying speedy recovery, get well soon. Definitely walking around without the braces on the legs and the ace bandages. I still got the bandages on the incision scars, but bending and sitting and exercising and walking around without those goddamn braces, I'm telling y'all, it is liberating. So me sitting at this station, my little setup that I've got to record and get content out for y'all, it is so much more comfortable. I'm getting more comfortable bending my knees. The recovery is going great. So I'm like, why not start getting this content back out to y'all, man? I gotta refocus and regroup and start pumping this shit out for y'all, man. I miss getting the content out to y'all. Another thing, I listen, I gotta make this list, people. I got a lot of movies to catch up on that I missed from like 2021 up. So I don't think I've got anything from 2020. I think we covered a lot that year. But from 2021, up until now, there's a lot of fucking commentaries to catch up on, man. I'm not gonna say lots of movie news because I don't think anything's movie news wise has been happening for me to report the news back to y'all. But we'll get it together, people. The commentaries are coming for sure. The reviews are coming for sure. We're going to get there, people, for sure. Y'all already know the love and support y'all show me. I show it back to y'all tenfold and then some. So with that being said, people, yours truly, Romero Tudor. Another episode or two, the reviews in the can. I'll check y'all on the next one.